Do 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 do.
Hey, what's up? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of SimplyPodLogical, a Simply Neological podcast.
Hello, everyone.
It's Sunday, 10 p.m. It's almost our bedtime, but we just watched the last episode of the HBO series The Last of Us, and we want to talk about it.
The last of episodes.
The last of episodes.
Yes. To clarify, it is Taco Tuesday when you hear this, but we're filming it on the Sunday night, immediately after the finale of the show.
This is the water cooler talk. Remember you used to go into an office and there'd be a water cooler?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
It wasn't a trick question.
I'm just like, what?
So people who have listened to this podcast or watched us stream and things know like I'm a fan of the Last of Us games. And Cristine recently played The Last of Us game, the first one.
With you a couple months ago.
With me
on
stream. That was fun.
So now I understand the lore. I get it.
So we knew the story going in. This conversation will not contain spoilers for the second game.
But it will for the first game and or first show, which just concludes. So if you have not watched the last episode of The Last of Us, which just aired,
what's wrong with you?
Then don't listen to this podcast because we are reflecting on this season in its entirety and also relative to the game.
Yeah, and breaking news, there's two things, Cristine.
What?
They've already announced they're making another season, at least one more season
So
of the
season
show.
2, okay.
But they've also announced they're making a spin-off called The Last of Hummus.
Oh.
Which is about a family that runs out of hummus, and it's like all about the strife and conflict and turmoil and aftermath of that.
Are
that
you
choice.
starring in that? Did they ask you?
I can't talk about it yet.
Is it your pilot project?
Yes.
Yes. Good one, Ben.
Okay, so we literally just watched the show.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe my opinion will change after I sleep on it. Yada, 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 whatever. I guess the first question is just like, did we like the show?
Yes, I did. And I generally am not someone who's like eager to watch zombie shows. And if you told me, oh, it's a show about zombies, I'd be like, I'm not interested. But I said that about shows like The Walking Dead. But I did end up liking most of The Walking Dead because when it's about more than zombies and it has human relationships and moral and ethical questions, that really interests me in a show, regardless of the setting. So I kind of got to overlook that, like, it's about zombie stuff, and just pay attention to a really rich story with interesting characters.
Yeah, I think you're already sort of inviting the discussion of, like, was this even a zombie show?
No. Yeah.
Right?
But I mean, I hear what you're saying, but like...
Except it is a trope, or it is sort of... it's not unusual in zombie shows for the real conflict to be between your protagonist and other humans, and how it's really about how humanity falls apart in these sort of post-apocalyptic worlds. So it's like, it's almost kind of cliche to be like, the zombies aren't the real monsters, it's people, right? This kind of wasn't a zombie show. Well, first of all, I guess there's a distinction between... Like the whole premise of the show is fungal infection turns people into what are effectively zombies.
The Cordyceps.
But we're not calling them zombies, right?
Right.
I think they had a rule where like we don't use the word zombie on set and stuff, which is whatever.
Okay.
But like whether you want to call them zombies or infected, they were barely in the show, I felt.
Good point. Except early on when they really made a point to get a close-up of the Cordyceps or whatever,
Cordyceps.
Like the no longer people but are now infected, where they kind of really showed what their faces now look like, which is basically a bunch of like fungus.
Well, it felt like for me, okay, my answer is I liked the show a lot. I thought it was good. I really wanted it to be great, and I feel like there are some issues I have with it that don't quite get it there. And I might only feel that way because I had a lot of baggage of the game and what I thought should happen.
Right.
So, like, I'll never know what it would have been like to just watch this show.
And exactly. It's hard because you're watching the show always comparing it to the video game, even if you try not to, because the video game was your first introduction to these characters and the story. So when you watch the show, inevitably you're going to be like, that's not how it worked here. Or I thought it was better in the game here.
But I'm not sitting there watching it being like, how dare they not play it beat for beat. No. I will say the finale that we just watched was incredibly faithful to the game, and I think that was the right choice to play it that way.
It was nearly exactly the same, eh?
Right? So, like, I saw the first 3 episodes of the show, I thought were excellent, right?
Yes,
Your
me
introduction to the outbreak.
too. I love the intro cards.
Oh, you like the cold opens, they call
the
it?
preamble, whatever you call it. Before they played like the song of the theme in the show, they just
before
had
the credits.
a kind of a historical moment for a few minutes. I really enjoyed those because they added context to this understanding of like, what are the cordyceps? Where did they come from? What was the first news conference like about it? What did the scientists first think? That was so interesting to me. And I kind of thought that they were setting a precedent to do that kind of
For every
intro card
episode.
of history before every episode. But it was only episode 1 and 2.
You're right. So the
And then I
first
was
2
like,
episodes
no.
had this. Well, the first one was kind of strange. It was like an interview from a long time ago of someone being like, the big threat to humanity isn't some influenza type virus. It's actually like a fungus because, like, good luck treating that. But then I really liked the opening to the second episode.
With the biologist.
Yeah, because it basically showed you in Thailand. Was it Thailand?
Where the outbreak started.
Yeah, and it was kind of implied in the game or hinted at that it was like contaminated crops, but here they made it more explicit that it was tainted food supply, probably flour.
And then they started to go into what was going to be the government response, and the scientists
It was just like bomb.
was just like just bomb this whole place.
And it was so beautifully done because you have this scientist being like this military guy like talking to this doctor, this researcher being like, "What do we do?" And her like analytical answer is like, "You just have to destroy everyone here and stop
everyone
this."
in close proximity.
And then she just goes like, "I just want to spend time with my family now," because she realizes how fucked everyone is. You're right. Like those moments were so
But
well
then
done.
we don't. I mean, we can assume what happened. Maybe they didn't bomb it.
Yeah, but in
But,
the
like-
U.S. at least, you see that the military did just try to bomb cities to prevent the spread.
Yeah, I
right?
guess there was so much interesting political kind of storylines that was unfolding, but we just weren't seeing it. So I thought that the preambles for future episodes were going to have a bit more of
You
that.
thought this would continue, eh? Every episode. Yeah, I could have seen that too. They did it for the last episode again because they showed you Ellie's birth.
Her birth story, yeah.
They really went back. You know, sometimes I get mad at shows and things because they feel like they need to show you everything, including like.
No, that was good.
I know it was good in this case, but I just kind of chuckled to myself because like you hear the joke of like, I don't need to see how the character was literally like born or conceived, but here it actually really worked because it provided a bit of an explanation even for her immunity.
And that was an explanation that wasn't in the game, right? Because that left me kind of frustrated with the game. I was like, I still don't understand. Is there a reason why she's immune? Is it just chance? And the show gave you that reason in the final episode. So they just invented that reason for their storytelling.
That reason being Ellie's mother is bitten while the umbilical cord is not even cut.
So she had just given birth,
Yeah.
but the umbilical cord was still attached.
Do you think this implies that like they could just create new immune people
I think
by having them biting the mothers before you?
that's what I was thinking. I was like, wait, so the solution is you want the baby still attached to the mother to get like a little bit of the defense immunity, sort of. So
don't know
like
if we
bite
should-
pregnant mothers, like
We
what?
probably shouldn't overthink this.
Yeah.
I don't think they're trying to imply like this is a reliable thing, but it's the closest we've ever gotten to an explanation for why she's immune. I don't know if that improves the story.
I like it. I like that
But
they did
you're
that.
the kind of person who wants everything answered.
Yes.
And sometimes I think it's better to just leave things unsaid.
But doesn't this help? It explains Ellie's character in a way because it shows her mother being really tough. She literally says words of like, "You got this, Ellie. You're a badass," or what? I forget what she said, but like something like that. She gave her the knife, or gave her friend Marlene the knife to give to her, and that was the knife she cut the umbilical cord with. So it really does kind of tie together her story. And no, you didn't like need it to imagine that Ellie just grew up a tough kid, but she was literally born in a tough situation. So I think it's kind of poetic.
I think it was poetic, and I think it hit a certain way for people who played the game too, because Ellie's mother
Was missing.
that is Ellie's voice, right? Because it was Ellie's mom in the show is played by Ashley Johnston, who is the voice actor for Ellie.
I didn't know that.
Did you not know that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so like I think a lot of people like you're literally like hearing Ellie talking to baby Ellie there. Did you not pick up on that?
No, I didn't realize that. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
so
cool.
I feel like there was kind of felt like a little emotional just for that reason alone because like it's literally like she is the mother of the character, like giving birth to this new iteration or a depiction of her. So anyway, like, what was I saying? I loved the first 3 episodes. I really didn't like episodes 4 and 5 and felt like it kind of went off the rails there.
Which ones were those again?
So that
Give me
was
some cues.
when they were going through Kansas City. And I liked those episodes to the extent that they focused on Joel and Ellie and meeting up with Sam and Henry, the brothers.
Yeah.
I really didn't agree with their choice to sort of... I've been listening to the podcast about the show for every episode except this one because we're just recording now. And they referred a lot to the idea that it was sort of liberating that in the game, you're really just seeing everything from Joel and Ellie's perspective, but the show affords them the opportunity to show perspectives of other people. I actually don't think that really served the interest of the game and story.
Of the show and story.
Yeah, the story for the show, I mean. Because what we saw with like the motivations of the people who overthrew Fedra in Kansas City and
like
I'm
the
upset
girl,
about
what
my
was her
brother.
name?
I'm the sort of the bossy lady.
Yeah.
And that whole, like, all of that felt kind of corny and stupid. And I thought the story is more effectively told, not with like just these people are just bad guys with guns and you don't think of them as having any humanity. Like, it's nice to have touches like that sort of recognizes like that they have names and things. But just, I feel like they really went overboard and sort of fell in love with that idea of like, we can show you more of these other people, when I think it's better for the world building for the Ellie and Joel's story if it really is just like, we're coming into the city and there's people who are just going to try to kill us. I don't need to know that her motivation is she's upset about her brother being killed by somebody or something like that.
So I think it could have worked if they had more time to develop those characters, because some of those stories could make a lot of sense and you could have kind of pocket side stories, which like is what happened on The Walking Dead, but they had like a million seasons to do it.
I don't want those pocket side stories.
Okay, well,
I want what is unknown. Joel and Ellie do not know their motivation. I think the story is actually more effectively told with you having that more limited view. I don't want to be the omniscient viewer, right? I think sometimes it's better that your worldview is like limited to what the characters you're following is. So it's not always better to know everyone else's motivations and have all that context.
But you really liked episode 3, as did I, right? Which is not about Joel or Ellie at all.
That's true.
About the couple.
Yeah, right? So this was Frank and Bill's relationship episode. Beautiful episode of television.
But they had time to develop those characters because they spent an entire episode dedicating it to just them. None of the other characters they gave that much time to.
Honestly, that episode felt almost like a spin-off in the middle of the show. That episode didn't really need to happen to advance the core story. Like, I mean,
I saw it as like a reprieve, because at the beginning you saw a lot of chaos and then they kind of did this reprieve episode, which is just a nice balance to the story and just like the viewer experience.
It was a great episode of television. I loved it. It was my favorite episode of the season, I think, actually. And it did very importantly establish when Bill writes that letter to Joel at the end, assuming he's going to find their bodies.
Yeah.
And just sort of really establishing this understanding of Joel, I think, accepting that, like, we have a role in the world, like, we're tough bastards, and like our role here is to find someone we love and protect them, and that is what gives us purpose.
And he said protect Tess, but Tess had already died when he read that letter.
So that episode was hugely important for that reason, and it's important that Ellie and Joel start that episode without a car and they end that episode with a car, right? So I'm not saying that episode didn't have like meaning in progressing the story, but I guess I don't look at it the same way with like why I didn't like that context, right? I guess you could make that criticism. I mean, I hear you.
Maybe it's because we liked Bill, and we liked those characters. They were characters that were likable. But then the other lady, I don't even remember her name. That's how not memorable it was. But the girl who was playing the villain in in Kansas, there was nothing that the story was giving you to like or care about her that much, other than it just kind of being a bit of a distraction or a challenge for Joel and Ellie. So you as the viewer like aren't interested in hearing more. And they didn't give you much more to spend time on her, to like her enough. So for that reason, I feel like it was a little bit of a waste, because unless you're really going to dive into the character and like give me something to hook onto, and maybe she comes back in 2 episodes, or like there's just like something else to tie around, it did feel a little bit rushed.
Yeah, I wonder, maybe I wouldn't have this criticism at all if I just liked the backstory or performance or what we sort of saw about it. I really don't think it added much at all. And it was sort of felt like the goofiest part of the show, where it was when the infected burst out of the ground. Actually, let's talk about this. I don't like how they depicted the infected all that much in this game. And even though in the show,
in the game or the show?
Sorry, in the show, I prefer how the infected are in the game than they are in the TV show.
And what's the main difference, would you say?
They almost gave them this sort of like communal behavior of like they're kind of connected, and like you step on a spore over here and a bunch of them respond over here. Show. This is in the show.
Correct.
Gave them sort of like a hive mind concept. Mm-hmm. And I felt like they were just like almost comically like coming at you like some sort of natural disaster. Do you know what I mean? Like they're literally spilling out of the ground like a wave, like just a mass of stuff. And
it was interesting. Like that's a different way to do it. You know, like I haven't really seen that done before.
It felt kind of like World War Z, flailing zombie, everything super quick. And to me, I preferred the very sort of grounded. Remember in the second episode, they come across 2 clickers in that museum. This is where Tess gets bitten, right? Mm-hmm. And these 2 clickers alone are an incredibly dangerous thing to come across. They have a lot of trouble shooting them. Ellie even gets bitten again. Tess gets bitten.
Yeah.
Like that felt so grounded, and just like those 2 infected alone represented like all the danger you needed in that moment. That felt great to me. So like jumping ahead to another episode where you see like hundreds of them spilling out of a rock and it's like quick shooting and like that just all that just kind of felt too goofy to me.
I hear you, but at the same time, shows like this that have moments of violence and chaos want to be able to demo that. And they can't just demo that with like 2 clickers. So I feel like
I disagree. They totally could have they could have carried that more realism throughout it.
Maybe, but I can also see why the producers or the screenwriters wanted scenes like that were very eventful, something that like shows like a major challenge, many of them at once, and not all throughout, because that would be overdoing it. But I could see why, of course, they wanted a scene or 2 like that.
Sure. I mean, it's a subjective thing. I didn't like that decision.
I liked the ones, I think it was 2 episodes before the weird patch in the middle, where they were kind of attached outside of a building. It would feel like it was earlier on, and you started to see them wake up in like a row, just like a little bit. Yeah. I think that was episode 2. I actually liked that, because that was like fucking terrifying, but not yet like they're all coming at you at once in a goofy way, but just like the slow wake of the wave of them all attached, like laying in a pile, and they started to awake, and you learned that it was a hive mind, kind of like a tree branch going everywhere thing.
Yeah. I didn't like that.
I thought it was very discomforting, which I think really worked.
I guess I prefer the more like sort of singular, like this fungus takes over your brain, turns you into a violent host. I felt like taking it like the layers beyond that of like them being connected as if it's one giant organism felt like the product of decision making where people had just like overthought it.
It's like zombie AI. They're like in a neural network.
No, I'm sure there's an argument for that, like the fungus spreads and like becomes a host for multiple. Like I'm sure you could think of why this makes sense, but to me, it's like maybe there were a few things I didn't love about the show that I feel like were probably the products of them just sitting around and thinking about it too much. When sometimes the right answer was just like, no, just play it like they're just sort of violent hosts.
Would you have preferred if they played it like the game?
in that case, yes, it is more like the game. I don't want to sit here like suggesting though that I just would have preferred everything
I know,
they
because
did was like the
there's
game.
going to be that first watch bias, whichever you kind of associate as the like original piece of content, and then you watch a derivative of that, you're always going to have that first content bias.
The show couldn't have just been like the game, to be clear though, right? Because in the game,
Why, we would have died 8 times? I would have died the whole there would be no episode 2 if
well,
it was me.
most of the game, because it is a video game and not just watching cutscenes, is shooting people and shooting infected and
Throwing bricks.
You're getting shot. Yeah, you're throwing a lot of bricks. You're getting shot a bunch.
Yeah.
And like healing yourself with med kits. Like
scissors.
None of
Get
this.
the scissors.
Yeah, exactly.
There was no scissors in the show, man.
No nail bombs.
I was so sad. Like not one pair of scissors lying around
There
for
should
Ellie
have been
to pick
a
up.
little
Come
Easter
on.
egg. It was like, let's pick these scissors may come in handy.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you could not have made a TV show that was that literally
for sure.
the game.
Yeah, so
right?
it's going to be more narrative, and they're going to add more narrative and characters than there were in the show.
And the violence in general. Like no one wants to watch if 90% of the show was Joel just killing people. That also doesn't work either. That said, here's I think my major issue with the show.
Okay.
I think they swung too far in the other direction of not depicting Joel being the violent, competent, capable defender of Ellie. So in the game, most of what you are doing is you are escorting this girl across the country and you are killing monsters and people protecting her on the way there. It felt like we got almost none of that in the show.
In the very beginning, I feel like that was there. You could tell that's who he was. And then
Well, they meet at the end of the first episode,
Yeah.
and you have that moment of like his it kicking in that he sees a parallel between Ellie and his daughter already, right? And he kills the soldier who might shoot
who
them,
found
right?
out that she was infected.
And
yeah.
you're right. Even in the second episode, Joel is like killing the clickers and escorting her through there, right?
And even just by the nature of agreeing to take her forward, he's agreeing to, okay, saddle up, like I'm gonna, or I'm gonna get you through this. Yeah.
But it seems like everything beyond this, we saw a lot of Joel failing. Joel with the bad hearing gets ambushed. Joel, he is saved by Ellie, I think more than he saves Ellie in the show.
It's probably not that simple to quantify that, but it does feel like if we're looking at it from an episode to episode basis, it did feel like there was a couple episodes in the middle and then just until that last episode. Okay,
Zyler wants us to go
has
to
some
bed.
thoughts on this episode.
Okay.
It did feel like there was a few episodes in the middle where Joel was hurt, not feeling well, wounded, and Ellie was doing more of the saving him or herself. Yes. But some of that is in the game. Some of that. Not most of it, though.
But I think it works so beautifully in the game. So there's two main moments I'm thinking of, right? At one point, Ellie shoots a guy, a raider, who's like maybe going to kill Joel, right? In the game, he's like sort of drowning him. In the show, it was kind of a shootout after a car crash. So there's that moment where Ellie saves Joel by shooting a bad guy. And then there's also, obviously when Joel gets injured and Ellie nurses him back to health. And then there's Ellie in the cannibal winter scene where she saves herself from David, but then Joel sort of comes in at the end to sort of like be that father figure to her. Those moments are hugely impactful and effective and emotional. And I'm not saying they weren't in the show, but I think all of those things work so much better if you have built up more of a relationship with them where Joel has been the protector. Because I think in the absence of more, it's not like filler, but like in the absence of more world building and establishment of their dynamic of why she even cares about this guy, that he is a protector to her. And I think she starts looking at him as a father figure for that reason alone, you could argue. That wasn't really happening in the show. And instead it felt like we were more often seeing Joel fail and like Ellie being the one nursing him back to health, Ellie being the one shooting the raider who was about to kill him, Joel, wake up, these two brothers ambushed us. It felt like we saw a lot of Joel like failing to protect Ellie until the very end.
Yeah. Do you think she was doing that because by that point she decided that he was essentially a proxy for her father figure because he did do a bit of protecting and she ultimately doesn't have anyone to lean on? Like, she'd been through so much trauma that you can kind of understand how easy it would be for someone like her to grasp onto someone who shows like just even a little bit of I'm going to stick up for you.
And she says this in when they're in Jackson and he's basically trying to get rid of her and get Tommy to continue the mission.
She's like begging him not to
She says
leave.
like, you've been the constant, like, you know, you've been there protecting me. But in the show, we haven't really seen him protecting her all that much.
Not as much as in the game.
No, yeah. So I feel like that just didn't quite work. And let's be honest, the show was rushed, I think.
Was it?
I think so.
Wait, isn't the video game like old? How what?
No, I mean like
Okay.
they went through the story quickly. Nine episodes
Okay,
wasn't a lot to get through the story.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that it could have been longer.
Because again, it's like you could have had more examples of him protecting her, more examples of them coming across infected. It seems to me by reducing how much time they had to tell the story, they're hitting these big, important, emotional character development moments that aren't quite earned by what you have seen in between. So we're getting the big moment where she's like, thank you, like, you've always protected me, like, how could you leave me, like, I want to stay with you. We haven't really seen a ton of examples of him being that protector. So we get the big emotional moments there that should hit really hard. And I feel like they just don't hit as hard because we haven't gotten enough of the meat in between those inflection points.
I definitely agree with you that compared to the video game, the show doesn't show that much of Joel kind of like saving her life, you know? It seems more balanced. Because there's a bit of Joel doing that, and then there's Ellie doing that, and then there's Joel at the end.
And I'm sure there's people who will say, well, like, it was nice to see like an Ellie not needing to be saved all the time.
Yeah. And
like the David stuff specifically with the cannibals where...
And they kept that the same. Actually, they made it even more just Ellie saving herself because she got herself out of the fire in the situation and then found Joel after.
Yeah.
Whereas in the video game, he discovers her while she's in the middle of murdering him. But,
yes.
You know, in both cases, she's saving herself.
In both cases, she saves herself. But I think it's really meaningful that she does that in the game because it's like a deviation from her having been just protected and saved by Joel for a lot of the game. And then you didn't really have that in the show.
Oh.
And like, I want to be careful how I put this. Like, sometimes...
No, I see what you're saying. It's all about relativity. Because in the game, you saw a lot of Joel protecting her. And then you saw her, like, little girl, that's what she is, stood up for herself and was able to fight David off without Joel's help. So as the viewer in the video game... relative to everything else you'd seen, that was incredibly powerful. But you're saying in the show there was less of that to be able to make that judgment. More of her saving.
And like, yeah, we're in a world where she's a 14-year-old girl. Child. I don't think it's that she's a girl. I just want to say that. I think that I like that in the game and in the video game. Sorry, in the game and the show, I like that they're depicting a young woman as like incredibly in not only intelligent, but she can just like hold her own and she doesn't take anyone's fucking shit. So I think that that's good. But what was I gonna say? I think like the thing that kind of feels a little bit sad to me is that she's a child. Like she's 14. Is she 14? Yeah,
is that 14. The age in the game and in the show? So that's where it feels, I guess, maybe like less realistic and just more sad that there's a child who has to defend herself so many times over and over and is saving the adult, the grown adult, Joel, many times more in the show.
Yeah, you need people like Joel in a world like this to protect people like Ellie. And I feel like
they need adults to protect children.
Yeah. And I feel like they said this, and like this is Bill's letter to Joel, or I think how Joel interprets that letter, although I guess it was Tess. But I think the point still holds is like, I think they wanted you to interpret like that's Joel feels he has a purpose in this, but then they didn't really like show it until that real payoff at the end.
At the end,
I guess.
maybe they wanted to make the end more climactic like that.
And maybe I'm just sensitive to like, I feel like we used to watch like kids shows or movies and stuff used to be like, remember Home Alone?
Yes.
Yeah?
Is this like Home Alone?
It's just kind of like Home Alone. Like, oh, two burglars come in. They want to rob the kid. They want to rob the family home, but the kid stayed there, got left behind by his parents. And this little boy outsmarts these two grown adult burglars, right? Those burglars would have beat the shit out of that kid, done whatever
If
they
it was
wanted,
real life,
stolen
yeah,
all that
I
stuff,
hear you.
right?
Yeah.
I feel like it's a really dangerous trap to play where you have like children winning against adults
And
in media
consistently winning, I guess.
without it starting to feel a little like a kid's show. I'm not saying it felt like that. That's just like a more extreme, but like it felt like it was nudging a tiny bit in that direction.
I hear you just because it's like slightly less believable, but at the same time, there's got to be room for wiser children, if I put it that way, like mature children for their age, to be that kind of independent person. So I still think that Ellie's character was drafted that way in the game and in the show. So I think that like that was good, but I understand where you're coming from. When you said the Home Alone thing, I was like, yeah, Home Alone's like, we all
yeah,
kinda,
well, it was like the scene in the show where Ellie takes the paint can and she swings it down the stairs at David
okay,
and
well,
it hits him in the
wasn't like
face.
that. There was no like tricks or whatever.
Anyway, I'm making this sound like I didn't like the show. I liked the show a lot, but I felt like
Okay. What did you like about the show, Ben?
I thought the actress who played Ellie, Bella Ramsey, excellent.
Yeah.
Ellie was so well played.
Yeah.
And I felt like that it was really hard shoes to fill because both the characters were so well acted in the game. It would have been very easy to be like, oh, it actually wasn't as good or something like that. She played Ellie brilliantly, I thought. And is just incredibly talented actor.
I love the way she played Ellie, like a little badass, and just like everything, even like the swearing, the jokes, the puns, everything just felt really authentic and like believable that was a real person. And maybe just to reflect back on what I was saying earlier, maybe a child who grows up in this environment of like literally being born into the apocalypse, it makes more sense now that I'm reflecting on this for a child like that to be have more grit and be more resilient and just be more of a badass naturally. And so maybe they were really trying to like push that home. So that's why we feel like it's just feels different than any other show where like you have a 14-year-old hero who can just, save the older men in her life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And there is like a violence to her. Like in that second last episode where like that creep David is like, I see that you have a violent nature in you. You're just like me. She's not like him. He's grooming her, literally. But I think he does recognize something in her that like she is a violent.
She's going to stand up.
She has tendencies for violence at a young age. And it makes sense in both the game and the context of the show, right? Like, what has she known her whole life? Or like, what is her life becoming? Traveling with Joel across the country, having to protect themselves and kill people. Like, she is sort of, that environment is going to breed like just not a healthy person mentally, you would think, right?
Yeah, and I like the occasional references throughout the show about how you realize as the viewer that she's never known another world. Like when she finds that book of puns, it's like the only piece of comedy
awesome,
that she's seen in her life, or she doesn't get any references to like fast food chains or anything before that time.
Well, she finds that diary in that kid's room and is like,
Yeah.
is this what kids worried about? Like
boys or whatever.
boys and what to wear to school. And it's like,
Yeah.
wow, they're like, you just do not exist in that same universe as people who lived through that, right?
Yeah, totally. So what do you think of Pedro Pascal's depiction of Joel?
So I thought he acted it amazingly. And like the Jackson episode comes to mind for me because he played Joel really like opens up to his brother in that episode about like just being vulnerable and feeling weak and unable to protect her, right? And I thought that was so beautifully acted. Like if you were submitting like an example of his acting in the show, it would be that episode. And it was amazingly well acted, but I didn't love that they nudged Joel into the direction of feeling weak and vulnerable. I would have preferred that he was more of the closed off, like I'm just like a dead shell of a man basically, and that Ellie is slowly making me
warm inside
feel
again.
like I have something to live for again, and I can basically
Isn't that what they did though? Because he was like that in the beginning. He was like, basically, why the fuck do I have to take this kid? Like that's what he was acting like in the beginning.
And I think that's why I liked the early episodes better too, because I felt like we got more of that earlier.
His character did change pretty quickly, but maybe that's because they wanted to spend more time showing you his care and compassion for her, so you could understand why in the final episode he kills 50 people to take her and save her life.
Yeah. I didn't love like they're showing him having like panic attacks and stuff like that. I don't really know what that added.
I thought it was, I'd have to remind myself exactly, but if my memory serves correctly, I think it was because he was just kind of remembering what had happened to Sarah again, and it was right after Ellie almost got killed by the authority person. Mm-hmm. And so he was having like trauma thinking of like what happened to his daughter again when he had spent 10 years like blocking it out. So I thought that's kind of what was coming to a head.
I think that's a fair take. I just don't know. Yeah, they're sort of like showing of his PTSD, I thought was a little heavy-handed. Like even like in the first episode especially, right? At the very end, they're like trying to draw that parallel between him protecting Ellie and remembering being in the same scenario with his daughter. That went without they literally cut the shot to show you the scene from the intro with his daughter.
Oh yeah.
They didn't need to do that.
They didn't need to do that.
The parallel is there, guys. Like you don't need to slap us in the face with it. So like, yeah, I just thought maybe they overdid that sort of aspect of it too.
I think for what was written then, I think he acted it really well. All the way from the moments in the beginning where he was like a fuck this shit kind of guy, like I don't care about anything else, to being more emotional and caring about her, but like not wanting to care about her at first and then just giving in to caring about her. Then all the way to murdering 50 people without asking any questions in the final episode to save her. Which when I first played this video game, like more recently, my first thought before reading or knowing anything about this was like, wait a second. So we think we're this like really good guy and, we want to save her. We think maybe she has a cure, but we just think selfishly in this moment by just like murdering a bunch of people to save her and then lie to her without giving her an option of knowing that maybe she could have potentially decided about what to do with her life, given that she may potentially be a cure. So in the show, I feel like if you hadn't watched the video game, I still think that if you watch the show and you're on the last episode, it probably clicks for you and you're like, wait, so there's this like weird music playing. They kind of like blur everything out just so that to set the tone. And he's just murdering, just like without looking, thinking, no more questions, saves her and then lies to her about what happened when she asks, what about Marlene, who is her only mother figure and other person she cares about that we're aware of. And then he just lies to her and he's like, oh yeah, don't worry about it, basically.
So did you think in the show it felt stranger that he just went on a murdering rampage compared to the game?
No, I felt that in the game, but I feel like the game didn't easily lead you to feel that way. I think in the game you were more likely to just be like, Joel's a great guy and like leave with that conclusion. But if you really tried to just like step back for a second, you might consider that, wait a second, I don't know if I think he's kind of being selfish. But I think in the game it was easier to like ignore that. In the show, I think they make you think about that because you just watch him kill 50 people and the music changes.
I think in the game, it's less. I think because you've spent a lot of the game as Joel killing people,
That's why.
the ending
Bingo.
didn't feel as strange as you're just killing a bunch of people.
No, because you are your first person shooter. So if you're that person, you care about them and they can do no wrong. So in the game, you're less likely to think there's anything wrong with you and your character.
I actually thought in the show they did a really good job of. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of like decision making going on with him, right? Like when he decides he's going to try to save her from the hospital, the way everything else sort of just blanks out. My interpretation of that was like his paternal instinct just kicked in, and he's just doing that. He's not really thinking about what he's doing. He's just gonna do it. He just feels this like irrefutable, or like he just has to save her. He doesn't care. He's not really thinking about
But what is saving
implications. Just literally saving her life from being killed.
Right, but he also then lies to her because he was bringing her to the Fireflies this whole time for weeks or however long it took, knowing that, and she knew that they were going there to potentially find a cure. And that might involve some testing with her, you know.
Yeah, but they didn't go there thinking she was going to be sacrificed.
How do you not even have that thought, though? And, like, she wanted to go there because she, I guess, wanted to help find a cure and save the world with her cure. But for him just to kind of take her out of that situation and then lie to her about what actually happened seems to me pretty selfish, because she is getting older and she will be older and she's going to find out one day. And then what? Is she going to trust him ever again? I feel like I would be upset at him if I was her.
The Fireflies also, it's not like they gave her a choice, right? And I guess she's a 14-year-old child. They think they have a chance of developing a cure. You're probably not caring about the choice of a 14-year-old. But like, I guess if we're going to call Joel's decision selfish, the decision to kill her and not tell her this and take that agency away from her.
To kill Ellie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're touching on.
I thought she knew more in the game. Am I remembering?
I think
something?
in both the game and the show, she has the same interaction with Joel shortly before they get there. That's like, we've come all this way. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And after this, we can go where you want. We can go back to Tommy's and we can just, try to put this all behind us. So like it is definitely not implied that she knows she is sacrificing herself for the sake of a cure.
But she was never even told about that possibility.
In either the show or the game. Yeah.
It just occurs to me that like in the last scene, or before the last scene, when he is holding Ellie in his arms after killing 50 people, including, I guess, the one doctor who was gonna do this, Marlene confronts him in the parking lot, and he just like, without any hesitation really, just shoots her dead and then makes sure she's dead like 2 seconds later. And then he can so easily lie to Ellie when she's like, what about Marlene?
Yeah, but he's lying to keep her safe, right? Sorry, I'm not like a Joel apologist here, but like his logic. This is his love. I've heard the creators of the game and the show talk about like this is really about love and how love can make you do wonderful, amazing things.
And a bit stupid.
But out of love, you can do terrible and like unforgivable things too, right? So I think that is sort of the story here.
Yeah, that he's ultimately, because he's so traumatized and hurt from losing his own daughter, it's almost as if that he's doing anything possible to save what he may perceive to be as his like second chance at having a daughter.
Yeah.
Even at the expense of humanity, potentially. Not saying it was a guarantee that she would have, restored humanity, but he's even lying to what is now his proxy daughter. And it kind of presents a challenge that he's just kicking the can down the road, because she's going to grow up and ask more questions. And when she asks the very pointed question in the last scene when they're out in the open fields, and she's like, was everything you told me about the Fireflies true? Swear to me that it's true. And he's like, it's true. And she goes, okay. And I wonder, because it's a little ambiguous how she, as an intelligent young woman, is interpreting this. She could be like, okay, I think you're lying, but I'm going to run with it for now. Or, okay, I know you're lying. And I see you. I see what you're doing. I think you're being kind of selfish. And there was something else about her attitude in that scene because he kept talking about Sarah and you could see her face kind of being like,
yeah, what's going on?
Wait, who
here?
am I? Am I just a replacement for her because you have a void? And did you really steal me from these people because you're selfish?
Yeah.
I actually think her character might be thinking that. Or it's just us kind of projecting that maybe we kind of hope she's doing a little bit more to consider that possibility.
I agree with you. I love the end of the game because her being like, he says like, yes, I'm telling you the truth. Her response, and then it cuts to credits that like, okay, could mean so many different things. And it feels like just an acceptance of, I'm just going to accept this. I'm going to accept that answer, but I know it's not true. I think that's sort of what's going on there.
Okay. And that's fair. I could see being in her
That's
position
my interpretation.
and doing that, because she cares about him too. So she's not like that mad, but she still has questions that haven't been answered.
So when are we playing the second game?
I don't know. When are they making a second season? Are they making a second season?
Well, yeah, they haven't even started filming it. It's probably going to be a long time.
Wait, but they are?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know if they were for sure making, like, it's been renewed?
Yeah, we said this at the beginning.
Oh, did
And
we?
The Last of Us.
Shut up. That's why I thought you were lying.
No, they've already confirmed. This show has done well, good ratings.
Okay, so they're doing at least a second season, but there's only 2 games. So they can only do 2 seasons unless they carry it on like The Handmaid's Tale.
Second game is twice as long as the first game. There's at least 2 seasons of television there. I think there could have been 2 seasons of television of the first show. But the second season, I think it would be impossible to do. It would be really strange to do it in a single season.
Okay.
So we'll get that. But I don't think we have to wait. If you're interested in the second game, we could totally just play it whenever.
Yeah, when we have time, I totally would.
Okay.
Did you see Pedro Pascal really loves nail polish?
This is very relevant.
I know. I made a TikTok on it. But like after getting into The Last of Us, and then someone just shared with me a TikTok that like was a compilation of him saying, "Show me your nails. I like your nails," to different interviewers. I was like, really? We have something in common. We're both obsessed with nails. But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, he seems like a big sweetie.
Yeah, I know. What color do you think he would like? I'm just trying to picture. Like,
But banana yellow.
I was thinking like mint mojito. I could see him pulling off. Maybe like Lost in the Woods. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Whatever
Anyways.
you want.
All right. Well,
That was a show.
I liked the show. I thought it was good. I liked the acting. I liked the overall story, and the fact that it was based on a game isn't always easy to pull off because you're competing with everyone who's obsessed with the game, and they have this like view of like this is how it should be.
Yeah,
So-
and I really don't want to align myself with that. And also like I don't want to be the guy. There's something wrong with my brain that like I'll see something I like.
You have brain rot,
Yeah. I see something I like
and I hate it.
and I'll tell you like that I like 90% of it. But like the first thing that comes to mind is the 10% I don't
Why are you like this?
I don't know. It's a glass half full kind of thing,
Okay.
you know?
It's our upbringing. It's our existence. It's being
Yeah.
30, almost 5 years old.
Conditioned with too much negative reinforcement.
Got it.
Where was that last percent on that test you could have gotten? You got 99%. Why wasn't it 100?
Would you make it in the zombie apocalypse?
That was a sharp left turn. Probably not.
Yeah, I don't think I would make it very far.
I don't
I
think
would
you would
not
make
like.
it
I
either.
love Ellie, but I could never be as badass as she is. I would not. I would need Ellie to save me. I would befriend an Ellie and be like,
Find
Ellie,
an Ellie to protect you.
please.
You need a bill.
I could be Rue's sister. You know,
Rue's sister.
it's from
The hell
Euphoria.
are you talking
It's
about?
the same actress. Okay, never mind.
Zendaya?
Well, Zendaya's sister in the show. Anyway,
Is
whatever.
that Nico Parker? Is that Sarah, Joel's daughter?
No.
Who are you talking about?
I can't remember her name in the show. The other girl from the carousel. Ellie's, yeah.
Oh, Riley.
Riley, yes, okay. But all I could think of was Rue's sister
Rue's sister.
because of Euphoria.
Oh, I haven't seen that. Should we watch that?
No. If you didn't like parts of The Last of Us, you won't like everything about Euphoria. Do not recommend that show for Ben. Do not recommend that show for Ben.
Why wouldn't I like it? Would I like Euphoria?
Nope. Don't do it, please. No one wants to
Why
hear
are
your
you so
thoughts
visceral?
on Euphoria.
Why not?
Ben, stop.
What's Euphoria about?
Ben, stop. Because it's not for you. Or me, really. But
Who's it for?
just like, not us. Just not us.
We're too old? I'm hip.
Sure. Very hip. You're so hip, you play Donkey Kong really well, I hear.
It's true.
It's Donkey Kong March.
It's pretty cool.
Okay.
Why can't I watch Euphoria? Now I want to watch it.
I don't think it's
You
a
tell
good
me
idea.
I can't watch it. Now I kind of want to watch it.
I don't think that's a good... You know how you said that you have a problem with your brain, that you see everything
I
negative?
do have a problem with my brain.
Yeah, I think this would make it worse. So, like, let's just not do that. Let's spare Ben's brain. We don't want no cordyceps.
Cordyceps?
Eating... cordyceps. Eating your brain and rotting it any further than it's already rotted.
Cordyceps sounds so cute.
Cordyceps?
It's like I want it. Maybe it would fix my brain.
Wait, how do you say it?
Cordyceps?
Corti as opposed to cordy. Got it. Cordyceps. Cordyceps.
Are you I think you need to go to bed.
Guys, it's almost midnight. What the fuck's going on here?
So, we like the show.
I like the show.
I like the show.
Okay, are you sure?
First 3 episodes, great.
Oh, yeah. The 3rd episode was the best.
Episode 4 and 5, Episode 6, 7, 8, pretty good.
Who do we appreciate? It's Ellie.
Finale.
It's Ellie.
Very good.
Ellie saves the day.
I feel like I maybe overstated that argument. It's not like it's not Home Alone, you know?
No, it's not.
Kind of
no,
insulting.
I know. That was an oversimplification, obviously, but it was illustrating a point you were trying to make.
I was more trying to say that those moments feel more impactful and significant when you have more of what is the gameplay in the game, but could have just been more world building with Ellie and Joel and him protecting her.
Got it. Yeah. Did you know that Bella Ramsey has a British accent? Did you know that? I was so fascinated when I heard her in an interview. I was like, oh my God.
You thought something was wrong with my brain.
I gotta go to bed,
What's going on in that head of yours?
Cordyceps.
Do you want to go to the Moon Baboon tonight?
Yeah, to the Moon Baboon. Watch that other show. We should react to that show that no one's watching.
Every night we fly to the moon.
Yeah, in a show called For All Mankind. It came out a few years ago, but it's good. Okay, we should go now. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let us know your thoughts on The Last of Us show or video game, or what do you like better, or do you like them both? All the things. Let us know down in the comments below. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see y'all later. Bye.